It's 1975. Star Trek has been gone for a while. The fans are trying to get it back, and they celebrated it in the Rocket Blast comic collector. Hey everyone, it's Tom. It's FANzine Live. We're doing classic zines today, and we are going back to the well of the Rocket Blast comic collector. This is the special Star Trek issue. We are at a special moment in time when it comes to Star Trek. And this is the point where the fan base really took hold and kept Star Trek alive when the studios pretty much didn't want it to happen. And I'll share with you the production timeline on this because I think it's important. The original TV series was 1966 to 69. There was a fan letter campaign to get that extra season made, because Star Trek was in danger of getting canceled. Then the fans never really stopped. And as a result, an animated series was created that ran in 73 and 74. And then it died. It stopped cold. And this is where the Rocket Blast comic collector and the conventions came together. The Rocket Blast comic collector is one of the original great fanzines of the era. And remember, there's no internet. You had magazines, and magazines had to fill a whole number of niches. But this was one that was a true fanzine. These guys got on the Star Trek bandwagon, and boy, they carried it. Coming out of the conventions, coming out of things like the fanzines, they finally came back with the original Star Trek the Motion Picture in 79, and then on to Wrath of Khan and so many of the other movies. And then, as you can see, they really kicked into gear when you had Next Generation, both the TV and films, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, J.J. Abrams reboots, and then all the stuff that's been out on streaming on Paramount Plus. I am enough of a Star Trek fan. I'm not I wouldn't call myself a Trekkie by any stretch of the imagination, but I am conversant enough in Star Trek that I know a lot of the tropes and I know a lot of the background on this. And being a guy who was born after the original series was out, after it was canceled, but before the films came out, I've had a chance to see the impact of the fan campaign, and it's truly incredible. So let's start at the beginning. We have a McKenney. It's Mike McKenney did the cover. Very cool. I believe this was called the Tholian Web. And on the back, SF. Who did that? Steve Fabian. Nice pointillism there. Good golly, that's a lot of dots. Fantastic shading. I love the entire Enterprise is done in pointillism. Wow. Okay. Inside front cover, Don Rosa. Don Rosa, have you heard of him? I've heard of him. He does the Donald Duck comics these days. But he started out back in the 70s working with James Van Hise, the editor of Rocket Blast Comic Collector, and he was one of the house cartoonists. Got an ad for Cinefastique. Oh, there is a still from the animated series that ran in 73 and 74. It was actually a pretty good series. I only saw it on reruns, but that's okay. We have a piece about Star Trek 74. This is actually a convention book. It says it's available from James Van Hise. The fans would get together, and this is before they had the big Comic-Cons and that type of stuff. This is the proto convention for all of the stuff that we know and love these days. Getting the stars after the show has been canceled. Remember, the show was canceled in 1969. So this is 5 years later. The fans are still getting together, and they're bringing the Shatners and Nimoys, your Captain Kirks and Mr. Spocks. They're getting them to come and speak at these conventions. This was a Houston one. But it's great. I mean, you've got a wonderful collection of promotional photography from the show. And it's all about Star Trek. Now, remember how I said that Rocket Blast Comic Collector had to fill a number of niches? They had some columns here, and this was a great one. It's called the RBCC Information Center. They brought together Golden Age comic consultants, Ray Miller, Jerry Bales, MC Goodwin, a TV consultant, Craig Henderson. Let's see what else. Oh, Don Rosa did the cartooning. People would send in their questions, and these consultants would try to answer them. So, for example, Bill Roberts of Barstow, Florida asks, can you list all the appearances of the Avengers in a group in various Marvel comics? And the guys do it. They come up with the list. Or how about this? Could you enumerate all of Robbie Reed's Dial H for Heroes? And they show where all those were. But then they went into other sections. They had questions about pulps. How about a list of the various paperback series reprinting pulp magazine characters like Doc Savage, Shadow, etc.? So they listed those. Some television questions, movie questions. And all along, you've got Don Rosa pieces. Notice there's a Donald Duck right there. That is early Don Rosa Donald Duck. And then an index on the Justice League of America, the first 50 issues. How many pages? What was the story? Who was in it? Pretty cool. This is Star Trek's first season. They have their cast members, their semi-regular cast members, producers, and then they do the air date, the name of the episode, the air date, the writer, the director, and then a real quick synopsis of each article, or of each show, not each article. Then they did the same thing with the third season of Wild Wild West. Then they have Boston Blackie movies, John P. Marquand's Mr. Mata. TV seasons, You want to know what they had on TV back in 1958? Yeah, they only had 3 networks, and these were your shows. So on Saturday at 9 o'clock on NBC, you could watch Steve Canyon and Black Saddle. If you want to watch 10 o'clock on Thursday at CBS, you had Playhouse 90. Back to Star Trek, The Cage and the Menagerie. For those who remember, The Cage was the first pilot, which had the original Captain Pike as the captain of the Enterprise. NBC rejected that pilot. I believe it was NBC. The network rejected the pilot, and later in the new series, in the revised series that finally did make it to air, they tore up The Cage and re-put it back together in order to create the menagerie. And so they just recycled the footage. But that one had Captain Kirk. Where No Man Has Gone Before, another episode. This is the second Star Trek pilot. So we've got a discussion of the first pilot, the second pilot. Look at these. Look at this imagery. This stuff is great. This is one of those convention gatherings. Looks like a wax figure of Captain Kirk. And then you've got the whole gang, DeForest Kelley, Dr. McCoy, Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock, Captain Kirk, William Shatner, Nichelle Nichols, Lieutenant Uhura. Then the creator, Gene Roddenberry, and I believe that's his wife, Majel Barrett. Star Trek Beyond the Pilots. Yeah, wax dummy from the Hollywood Wax Museum. Little behind the scenes stuff there. Love the fan art there by Joyce Huser of Dr. McCoy. An Evening with Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry went on the college circuit. September 24th, 1974, he appeared in the gymnasium at Miami-Dade Community College North Campus. So it goes through his discussion there. Little behind-the-scenes stuff. Scene from the Star Trek bloopers. Looks like some kid there. You want to get some of these stills? They were $3 a piece. Then the keyhole. The keyhole is interesting. This is a kind of news piece about the comics industry, or at least this particular issue was. The first headline, Kirby moves back to Marvel. So the fourth world is over. He's going back. And one source says his first book will be a revival of the Silver Surfer, beginning on May 1, 1975. Then the next one, this is where it gets really interesting. Rumors have been flying around about a special one-shot publication. Now remember, this is Rocket Bass Comic Collector 118. This is April 1975. Okay, April 1975, this was printed. About a special one-shot publication around Christmas time 1975 to incorporate the two top-selling heroes of the two top adventure comics companies. Supposedly, there is legal groundwork being laid for a Spider-Man Superman, or Superman Spider-Man, team-up. Jerry Conway going to write the book. Go figure. The first of the comic company crossovers. And then it gets even better. 2 movies are in discussion and might go well with the above item. There is a large budget Superman movie in the planning with super special effects and some top name stars. Godfather author Mario Puzo is reportedly writing the script for the movie for obviously a super fee. And then, so that's the Christopher Reeve initial Superman movie that they're talking about, that it might be in production. In addition, there will be a Spider-Man movie with Stan Lee having a good deal to do with the scripting. It says, could be a super slugfest come Oscar time if these movies are as good as the promises behind them. Well, the Spider-Man movie didn't quite turn out that way, but the Superman movie was quite good. And then, of course, the paperback releases. Star Trek Lives. Then, because, again, you don't have the internet, you don't have social media, and you don't have all the catalogs that are out there, what you did have was Rocket Blast Comic Collector with all the different advertising. And so if you want to get a copy of Little Nemo in Slumberland, or Flash Gordon on the Water World of Mongo, or some collections of The Spirit, or Walt Disney Comics, or Little Orphan Annie, or the Comic Book Price Guide, that's probably the Overstreet one. That's where you would go for this. Then Don Rosa published his Lost in the Andes strip, which was originally published in the Kentucky Kernel, September to December 1973. So there's some early Don Rosa cartooning. Then you got some critique, and these are on a 10-point scale, different fanzines, and James Van Hise, the editor, gives his critique of those different ones. So you've got everything from Funny World to Cinefastique to the Classics Reader, the Daily Spirit, Tales of the Macabre. Nice little column about Dell Comics are good comics. Why Barks? Carl Barks. Part 3, Barks is a humorist and satirist. And so we've got a nice article here about Carl Barks, the legendary duck cartoonist. An ad by Kerry Gamill's work. Kerry Gamill, of course, has gone on to work for the Big Two. People would be selling their comics and their zines. You want a copy of Mad #1? Lanny Cox from Mississauga, Ontario, had it for $110. Let's presume that's Canadian. Thomas Blanding of Roanoke, Virginia. You want to get a copy of Amazing Fantasy Adventures #5? $4. Avengers 2 for $9. Fantasy Games, EC Comics, Spider-Man 4 for $8.25. And these people would just list all of their stuff, and you would then send your money off, and that's how you would get your comics. These ads were the lifeline of the comic collecting world because there just weren't that many shops. Ye Old Fanzine Shop. This is, of course, Van Hise's stuff. he had a whole bunch of stuff. He also sold plastic comic bags, specially made for comics. Only $3 per 100. Man, think of how much they cost these days. Wolvertunes. Collector's editions of Robert E. Howard, Flash Gordon, Bern Hogarth. Good stuff there. The Necromonicon Society. Memberships now being taken to a new Lovecraft Society. Valley of the Cliffhangers. Neat book there. Palm Beach Con, Trek Con International, 1975. Who's their special guest? Mr. Sulu, George Takei. But also C.C. Beck, creator and illustrator of the original classic Captain Marvel. At the Houston Con in 75, they're auctioning off, or they're raffling off, I guess, a C.C. Beck original painting, the Nostalgia Film Club of America. Star Trek 75, the big one, Jimmy Doohan, Mr. Scott. Very cool. And then Houston Con. Again, C.C. Beck. He was a busy boy on the convention circuit. Then ads for Cinefastique, RiverCon. Got to get those bags, everybody. And then the closing. This is really cool. This book, this title, truly represents the birth of fandom as we know it. If you like the stuff that you see at your Comic-Cons, your San Diegos, your New Yorks, your Reed Pop shows, your Galaxy Cons, in many ways, it all started with the stuff that was generated and promoted by the Rocket Blast comic collector. So it's really fun to be able to share this, and then to be able to have the role of fandom and of zines in resurrecting Star Trek. It doesn't get better than this. Very, very fun. So glad to share it with you. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. Do you have any Rocket Blast comic collectors? Have you got any thoughts on the role of fans in keeping Star Trek alive? I'd love to hear them in the comments. Don't forget, of course, and of course, the fantastic art that's been throughout here. I mean, Don Rosa, give me a break. Some good stuff in here. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to FANzine Live. And, of course, tell your friends, because there are very few channels out there that'll take an in-depth look at a zine like a Rocket Blast comic collector. This is one of them. Tell your friends. Thanks again for watching, everybody. This is Tom. So glad you joined us. I will catch you next time.